Oh, I hate these ad breaks. I gotta wait forever to find out if I'm actually on the dang stream or not. There's got to be a better way. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't click on it. Idiot. Now it's the commercial. There I am. There's me. Hello. I'm on TV. On the internet. How's everybody doing? Everybody feeling good? Feeling good? Woo! Alright. What's up? Beautiful day here. Beautiful day. Not too hot. The backyard grilling zone is got a nice cool breeze running through it. We got the sink back here, all the trees. It's very nice. But I do think I should get some more plants back here. If I keep this place for another year, I'll definitely get trees or get plants for next spring. It's a chill zone and a grill zone. It's true. So I was thinking about continuing on something I was talking about yesterday. Talking about statues, because apparently that's what the protests are now about, getting rid of statues, and whether it's good to do that. I think if anybody saw the stream yesterday, they know where they imagine where I would probably be on that, and they're correct. This is another example of people dealing with, or refusing to deal with, the lack of a structure, the lack of any kind of meaningful deliberative body that can create policy and then implement it through people who are dedicated to a cause. It's all we really have is a bunch of people who are sick of bullshit and are doing what they think will expresses their sickness of said bullshit. But the problem comes, and this is the exact same thing that happened with Occupy, is that because you don't have deliberative processes and you don't have discipline within a movement, people kind of gravitate towards certain things as actions, as goals that substitute for the greater goal that is not really pursuable without a structure. Like, you need a structure to really pursue the kind of huge radical changes to policing that are being demanded right now, and we don't have that. So people gravitate towards things in front of them that have a concrete meaning. At Occupy, that meant eventually the Occupy movement became about staying in the park. It was specifically, we're going to stay here. Nothing more dramatic than that, which meant that when they decided to break it up, that was pretty much the end of it. And now we're in a similar situation. At least it looks like. We'll see. Like I said, everything is changing and nothing is fixed. But the momentary conditions are that knocking over statues feels really good, and so people want to knock over statues. And God bless them. Go for it. You know, as a team building exercise, what could be figuring out how to pull some stupid, chintzy Confederate factory-made, hollow, fucking Easter bunny-ass piece of shit sculpture down. That's the funniest thing about all those daughters of the American Revolution Confederate monuments that are up there. They're all absolute dog shit. They're hollow. They cost like $5. They're mass-produced. It was all part of a propaganda campaign at the time, at the turn of the century. They're not art in any meaningful sense. So people are knocking them over and they're having fun. And people are like, hey, let's knock over Columbus. Let's knock over the Founding Fathers. Let's knock over U.S. Grant. Which, I mean, I get what they're saying. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't knock over a Grant statue. But I can't really blame anybody for doing whatever they want, because, like I said, all we're doing is determining the morality of the action. Because the question of whether it's an effective or meaningful thing is beside the point, because we couldn't stop them if we wanted to. Nobody can stop anybody from doing anything, because nobody is ordering anyone to do anything, because there's no structure. The hope of this Bernie's campaign, in my mind, the big hope, was to give structure to the burgeoning alienation with capitalism as it's being practiced in this country. And sadly, it did not last long enough, and then it ran headlong into the social isolation of COVID to do that. And now people are once again trying to reimagine a practice without a movement and without coordination. Coordination is the most important part. Coordination is what takes the numbers, the raw numbers, and makes them effective. Coordination was what makes it possible for you to do things like shut down the ports, like they did last week in San Francisco. But that's because that's a fucking union, and it's a radical union, one of the most radical unions in the country still. The dock workers there. Gus Hall's old union. Communist Party hotbed throughout the 20th century. Now, the rest of the country doesn't have that, and so something like pulling down a statue feels like it's doing something. But it's not really. I mean, you could pull down statues as part of celebration of a new power coming in and changing, the cultural matrix, the cultural value system. But pulling down the statues doesn't make that happen. It's a result of the fact that we've totally confused the symbolic and the material realms. And we really do think, because we operate almost exclusively in our lives at the symbolic level, that fucking with the symbolic order will somehow filter down to change the material conditions. And it don't work that way. Changes that occur purely at the symbolic and cultural level will be recuperated always by the material conditions if they don't change. So that's why it's always a bummer to see something like, okay, now we're all going to talk about statues and who should pull down and who should go up. I'm actually with Matt Brunig in the idea that there shouldn't really be statues of individuals. That's kind of messed up, really. I mean, you're turning this person into a god. I mean, that's what they did when they did a statue of like Caesar or fucking Titus or something. That was part of the beatification of the emperors. The only humans that should have statues are fictional characters like RoboCop and the Fonz, or local heroes, like some guy who like assembled a really big ball of twine, or save some babies from a well or something. I mean, my God, do you really think humans make history individually? What are you, 12? We are all merely able to operate in the narrow confines given to us by our place and time and birth. The idea that individuals make history. No, they make that individuals make history, but not as they please, as Marx said. And but anyway, so I don't really care about the statues either way. I don't care if we get rid of every statue. David Roth has pointed out they're not even good to look at. They're almost always the most boring part of any public art installation. Abstract statues tend to be much more interesting than ones of specific people. But the degree to which the moment becomes about defending or condemning the removal of statues is the degree to which people have given up on changing the actual conditions and turned them into a fight over symbols, a culture war, as it were. And I could very well see a world where by November, the entirety of this moment of unrest and revolt has been boiled down to a yes/no question about, like, should we get rid of Mount Rushmore or something like that. But it doesn't have to be that way. Things can change. Things are always changing. I'm just saying right now it's not a good development, that I'm not personally terribly thrilled with it. And it certainly doesn't speak to strength. It speaks to confusion and powerlessness. But that is the defining characteristic of Americans, so it makes sense. I will say that the relitigating the Civil War and what caused it, I'm always up for that, because that's one where it's like really a slam dunk. Like, there's no way to argue with it. The only way you can make it arguable is if you decide to pull some sort of rhetorical trick and change definitions or something. Again, the sectional crisis in America that led to the Civil War was caused by one thing, above all else, that on the continent of the United States, the land, the rich black soil that allowed for mass cultivation of staple cash crops, not staple crops, cash crops, like tobacco and cotton, was largely confined to the southern states. And the thing about cash crops is, in a context like America, right, where you've cleared out the native inhabitants and you have this huge tracts of free real estate, as Tim Heidecker would call it, the only way that you can create an economy of scale there that will make growing something like cotton or tobacco profitable is if you have basically free or incredibly low cost labor. And the problem with that, from a colonial, the perspective of the colonizers, was even if they'd wanted to use colonizers to do that, they couldn't have, because when you have that kind of abundance, that kind of abundance in real estate, as it were, there's no way in hell that you could pay people enough to do the work, because it sucks. It's fucking terrible. The reason that they were able to put all those Brits into the dark satanic mills is that they'd enclosed all of the free pasture lands before that. People had no condition, they had nowhere to go, all the land was owned, they had nothing to do but work in the factories. In a colony, no colonist could ever be made to work picking cotton at a price that would make picking that cotton worth picking, worth creating a profit for the investor, for the person who, the aristocrat who owned the land, because they could just leave. They could just go they'd say, fuck you, I'll go over the village, I'll go over the thing, and I'll live in the hills. I'll grow corn and I'll make whiskey just like they did in the north, just like the small colonists in the north and in Appalachia. The person who's doing that work has to have no choice. They have to have nowhere to go. So hey, if their skin brands them as part of a class that is unfree labor, then they don't have any options. They have to work for whatever. They have to work for on the terms of their owner, as it were, because they've been pulled out of their where they're from. The first generations of slaves had no English language, total disorientation across the land, and then put into a place where there's nowhere to go, because if you're there, people know you're not supposed to be. And that's a thing that they could never have done to any colonist, and that's why indentured servitude kind of went away over time, because they'd say, fuck you. And that's where it all started from. Like, everyone wants to talk about, like, oh, it was the tariffs or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but why did the South not want tariffs? Because they were an export economy. Because they were exporting cotton like that was it. Because it was a classic latifundist situation where you had these decadent plantation owners with no interest in seeing development. They didn't care about roads and schools and any of that bullshit. They wanted profits for them. And that meant low tariffs so that they could sell, so that they could pay as little as possible for imports. In the North, they have industry, because they didn't have those huge swaths of bottom land that could be turned into slave plantations. People had to work as the yeoman farmers, the flinty New England farmers. They're called flinty because New England soil is basically rocks. So everything that comes out of it, all the conflicts that you can point to and say, it wasn't slavery, it was X, it wasn't slavery, it was Y, they all emanate from that structural material reality. The necessity of slave labor to make plantation agriculture viable. Over time that changes as the mechanics change or whatever, but in the early stages, when you create the structures that then become self-reproducing social orders, which the South created very quickly, that wasn't the case. And so that means that during the Civil War, the Union was the progressive side. I mean, if you're talking about good guys or bad guys, that's dumb, because that doesn't really apply historically. That's not really a thing. for the most part, in terms of like grand sweep. Like individuals can behave virtuously, but for the most part, states don't. They operate from what they perceive as self-interest, and so you have different self-interest between the northern sort of political class, the hegemonic political class in the north, and the southern political class, hegemonic political class in the south. Because remember, there were tons of white Southerners who didn't want to break away, and in fact fought the Confederacy and resisted it being drafted, and in the case of Western Virginia, literally seceded from it. And those places, coincidentally, were the places where plantation agriculture was least prevalent because it was too hilly, it was too rocky. Wherever there were mountains in the South, the Eastern Carolinas, or the Western Carolinas, Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, Western Virginia, northern, even in the deep, deep South, there were huge pockets of resistance to the Confederacy in northern, i.e. Appalachian, Mississippi, and Alabama. But America was the progressive. The United States, the Union, was the progressive force, and I think like there is this sort of like too clever by half leftist move sometimes to say a lot of this actually you see with like black radicalism and stuff that doesn't want to give the white man any credit. Which, hey, I understand not wanting to give white people any credit for anything, but where it says, oh, the North was actually just trying to clamp down and impose like its industrial capitalist hell economy on the rest of the country. And the thing is that didn't really exist yet in 1860. It was still it was still proto. I mean, the vast majority of America's of the cotton that was made in the South went to Europe, went to England specifically, because that's where the industrialization started earliest, and that's where it was most intense. So that's where the capacity for turning raw cotton into finished linen, whatever, was most advanced. The U.S. didn't become an industrial economy really until after the Civil War, for the same reason that the British did. War war tends to, in the modern context, accumulate capital in such a way to boost all of the present, but the present conditions, the present progressive moves towards industrialization. Like if you have a process of industrialization, it is radically accelerated by war, by the state investment in industry that comes with fighting a war. We were made into an industrial capitalist society by the Civil War, the same way that the Napoleonic Wars are what made England into the paramount industrial power of the 19th century. But nobody knew that at the time. Guys like Lincoln weren't fighting for industrial hegemony. They were fighting for the Whig ideal, which was the small-holding farmer in equal competition with, or in an equal position with all other strata of society when it comes to rights and abilities, and in an equal position with anyone who would hire him because you could get land. And of course, this is all based on expropriation of Native American land. It's all based on, and that is the foundational difference between the United States and the European countries we're always comparing ourselves to. All the cultural distinctions come from the reality of a continent's worth of land that has been decided is free, because the people who are on it aren't really people, as Tim Robinson would say. So I think you should leave. They're not really supposed to be here. It's okay. That's what makes America what it is. And the Whig idea was, like I said, if you get rid of slavery, and the white man is not competing with slaves, and this became eventually the hegemonic belief of white Northerners generally, including Democrats, which is what led to the Democratic Party breaking up in 1860, is that they would not accept a Southern candidate. The Northern Democrats would not accept the Southern half of the party dictating their candidate, which before they would have been fine with. But by 1860, the sexual crisis, and specifically the border war in Kansas, had really changed that. And white men in the North were becoming more and more aware of the idea that they were in competition in some way with slavery as a economic institution. And so they were like, no, we don't want that. The Whig idea that Lincoln ended up taking to the White House was, you get rid of slavery, and every man will have the freedom to either engage in profitable work for an employer, or if they don't like those conditions, they can fuck off and be a yeoman farmer. Because hey, look what we just did with the Homestead Act. I mean, that the Homestead Act was America's land reform agenda, the kind of thing that would have been impossible in any European country without a war, and the thing that led to most of the right-wing coups in Latin America in the 20th century was land reform. We were able to do it because the people we were expropriating land from weren't existing stakeholders like United Fruit or whatever in Central America in the 50s. They were Native American tribes who weren't part of what we consider to be the polity, and so they could be pushed aside. And that gave that opened these huge expanses, and that created this notion that, hey, we can have like an egalitarian, the Jeffersonian model made real. But of course, over the course of the war, to defend that, you create this industrial behemoth that pretty much, that in the decades after the Civil War, swallows everything. And then I think what a lot of people do is they look backward through that lens and say this was inevitable, and everyone at the time knew they were doing this. And neither of those is true. I hope nobody is thinking that I'm saying that like slaves couldn't resist their enslavement. Of course they did, but it was a categorically different thing to try to withhold labor as an enslaved person, with your color branding your position as one, as a slave, than a colonist who's like hired, who would hypothetically be hired to pick cotton and then could literally just walk off whenever he wanted to, if he wasn't getting enough money to make it worthwhile to do. And there was no way that could have worked, because the thing about those large-scale cash crop industries is that the actual work was awful. I mean, cotton wasn't even the worst of it. Sugar was honestly one of the most nightmarish existences possible, being a slave on a sugar plantation. There's not enough money you could pay a free person to make them do that, especially in a condition where they could, of material abundance, where they could find their own sustenance elsewhere. I saw this travel stimulus thing. God, that's so funny. Here's a tax credit to go on a vacation. Just so adorable. You'd think a Democrat would have come up with that one. Oh, it's so good. And of course, it's not even a free money. It's a goddamn tax credit, which means you have to have $4,000 that you cannot see until next year in your tax return. Wild. As we know, before COVID, something like half of Americans don't have $500 to go through an emergency situation. And yet, no, they're going to do it so that everybody who has $4,000 to not be in their bank account for a year or more, and to go on vacation when the goddamn virus is still everywhere, when it's going like wildfire through all of the red states, as anyone could have predicted. The whole time we were sitting tight here in New York, and all the fucking rubes were yucking, the reply was, just wait. And now, whom could have predicted except everyone? That's what's happening. So you're saying, hey, you guys, go into the heart of a plague outbreak, or come from one to a place that doesn't have one way or another. Make sure to mix it up. You could just give people the money. You could give people the money, which would stimulate local economies, and that would even affect places that have a tourist-based economy, because people still live there and they still have to live, buy things, but it's harder because they don't have income. Well, you replace the income. How about that? With actual money. Oh dear, how can you imagine? Can you imagine such a thing? But McSally's cooked. She's going to go down as like an all-time loser, losing getting appointed to a seat, losing it, then get appointed to a different seat, and then losing that one. Scott Brown level loser. Oh yeah, Scott Brown won an election. McSally was just appointed, two-time loser. I do like the idea though of giving people 4 grand that they can only spend on a vacation. I mean, that would be dumb too. You should just give people money without strings attached. You should always just be keeping. I mean, as long as we're in this hell world, hell economy, and as long as we're just at the level of demanding, redistribution rather than of money rather than power. For the love of God, just give people money, strings attached. But the idea of giving people 4 grand, but they have to take a vacation, I would love to just see what people did with it. People who'd never taken a vacation before, they're not going to let that, because it's like you either use it or you don't get it. So it's like, fuck it, let's do it. And people who've never taken, like, never gotten on an airplane before or whatever, or people who would never think to travel are now doing it. Where would you go? I mean, yeah, like, it would be like a Brewster's Millions situation, and that would be awesome. I mean, if we're gonna be wacky, have fun. Let's go all the way. Like the tax incentive thing is awful because yeah, it's just the same rich assholes who go on vacation anyway. Only now they get to do it for free. Make people spend the money on a vacation, real money. Like give it to them in a form of like a debit card that's only accepted at certain places. Like it's only accepted by airlines. The same way like a WIC card is limited. You can't buy hot food or whatever. Can only buy airline tickets and hotels and like restaurants in cities that it knows you don't live in. I do love the idea of somebody taking 4 grand to go, like just themselves, 4 grand to go to Wisconsin Dells and just live like an absolute maniac at the Dells. Like, just tipping the kid at the Tommy Bartlett Thrill World when you come in, demanding backstage access at Noah's Ark to see where they like skim out all the shit and whatever. But I think that would be such a perfect emblematic moment. Like the country is clearly teetering on the edge of some sort of significant, I don't want to say collapse because that does sound alarmist, and institutions like these often are more resilient than you think they are. And like I've often pointed out, the world economy still needs America to be the employer of the consumer of last resort. But we're still clearly in a free fall away from even the meagerly satisfying and in fact mostly miserable status quo that we were slowly coming acclimatized to. Even that's going away. And in the meantime, just have everybody go on vacation, go on a state-subsidized vacation, like Russian factory workers going to the fucking Black Sea on a package deal with everyone else on their shift. Amazing. Let's do it. Yeah, that'd be funny. Take 4 grand to Cuba and just like give it to the government. China has been building counter hegemony. Has it? Because it does really seem to me that right now China is basically just at joined a hegemony. I mean, there's still like geopolitical rivalry between the United States and the U.S. or the United States and China, but it seems to me that it's mainly over who gets to be in charge of the hegemony, which is different than like the existential conflict of the Cold War. I want to find like the shittiest tourist spot in America, a place where no one would ever go. Like, oh, you know what would be funny? Go to the goddamn Corn Palace in Wall, South, or Wall Drug. That's it. Go to Wall Drug in South Dakota. One of the stupidest, chintziest, fucking awful, lame tourist attractions in the entire country. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's actually a genius of marketing. So there, in South Dakota, there's one, I forget which one, but there's a highway that runs along like the southern track of it. That if you're going cross country, is usually I was driving halfway cross country. I was driving from Wisconsin to Washington State, and the way to do that fastest is you just cut through a highway that just goes all the way straight across the south quarter of South Dakota. It is the most desolate, empty stretch of road I have ever encountered in the country. And I've driven cross country several times. I've been through Kansas. I've been through a lot of very empty. I've been to the high desert. Nothing is as desolate feeling as South Dakota. It is genuinely like empty. You know? Just fields. Fields, no animals even. Fields, no cops. I didn't see a cop on the highway the whole time. I got fucking pulled over 5 minutes after I got in Wyoming, though. So your drive is incredibly featureless. And so on the way, when you're going east to west, there are a bunch of billboards. I don't know, like every 50 miles or 100 miles or so that say, coming up, exit whatever, wall drug. And you just see them as you're driving. It's the only thing you see is wall drug, exit, upcoming. And you by the time you go through enough of South Dakota, you've been broken down mentally so much by the monotony that you've built up wall drug in your head as some sort of paradise. So of course we stopped at wall drug, even though we didn't have to. Their whole thing was free ice water. And we go there, and it's just a giant drugstore that's like old-timey Western themed and has like the walkways, the thoroughfare walkways with the wood, and it's got the overhang. It's like an old-timey, like a Western set, only it's just a giant drugstore with like a shit ton of very pedestrian souvenirs for like the Black Hills and shit. And shit like, oh look, it's refrigerator magnets shaped like all the states. And then there's a couple of animatronics, sort of like a Country Bear Jamboree, only they are not on. You gotta like press a button. And I was in there for maybe 10 minutes, and we got out, and I was like, that's fucking so lame. I hate it. I want to take my $4,000 check from Donald Trump and go to Wall Drug. Just like give it to them and say, can I stay here? Can I just like sleep here in Wall Drug for $4,000 and like just take out a wheelbarrow full of stuff? They'd probably say yes. But no, the pimp move, I've never driven through it since, but the pimp move, and this is I think what really distinguishes the alpha mindset from the beta, and I was a beta at the time, is if you drive through South Dakota for the first time, have you not been to Wall Drug, you drive through South Dakota, you take that whole area, and you don't stop. That's the alpha. That's the Chad posture. I was the virgin. I learned my lesson. But sadly, I can never prove it because now I know it sucks. And you often see bumper stickers, because they sell bumper stickers that say Wall Drug, and then people get them and put them on their car, I think because they have such a deep association now between Wall Drug and their trip, because they just spent like a solid day just staring at billboards that said Wall Drug, and they feel like they're now in some way their trip and Wall Drug are the same, and they've never left Wall Drug. They go into the bathroom of Wall Drug, and there's an attendant there going, "You've always been here. You've always been at Wall Drug." Yeah, I stayed at a motel in Kadoka, South Dakota, which is, by wild coincidence, and I didn't even realize this until years later, that's also where Michael Clark Duncan's character has to get picked up by the FBI during the Gather the Crew montage in Armageddon. But anyway, I stayed in a motel there. It was one motel in an on and off ramp, no town. It wasn't part of, where you see like 15 Best Westerns and La Quintas or whatever, and there's a McDonald's and fucking Friendlies and a Chuckle Fucks. Just off ramp, basically like a fucking cinder block, low strung motel, and that's it. and it had a screen. It had a glass sliding door, and it smelled like someone had died in it. Not been murdered, but like mummified by time. Yeah, South Dakota. The Black Hills are nice. Mount Rushmore, lame. Not just because it's a bunch of presidents on sacred Indian land, although that is disgusting. It is also chintzy and shitty. Stuff like Mount Rushmore really is the like, because Mount Rushmore was a huge project at the time. I mean, obviously, it took years. It was a massive undertaking. It gathered America's imaginations. This is an interesting factoid. Gutzon Borglum, the non-American who designed Mount Rushmore, when he was in the United States, he became very, very taken with Southern culture, as it were, and he designed Stone Mountain there, which is another etching on the side of a bluff of a bunch of Lee, Davis, and Jackson, and he joined the KKK. But anyway, this is like a symbol of American culture, right? Like when the Anglo-Saxon weirdo types, like when the Western architecture type guys show their pictures of Don Draper and they're like, what we used to have, like their idea of culture is shit like Mount Rushmore, and it fucking sucks. It's lame. It's really small, and it's just its face is on a mountain. I mean, other than like the kind of ghoulish, Alan Moore style, like evil ritual magic of putting that on the land, the sacred land of a people who'd been massacred by the people on those fucking, on that, like there's a dark majesty to that. There's like an evil, there's kind of an Arbart Mark Fry feeling to it, that sort of curdled sarcasm and cynicism that's at the heart of authoritarianism. The culture is dog shit. And I'd really love to see some tanks. You know what I would like to see? If somebody's going to destroy Mount Rushmore and someone's going to destroy Stone Mountain, I would love it. But if it's like some corporate PR move, Coca-Cola presents Stone Mountain and they just like put Donald Glover there next to them to balance it out or something, an outcast, that will suck. What would be awesome is if those things got destroyed with some good old-fashioned tank rounds. Roll in some Abrams tanks, set up the shot, and just blow them up like that old newsreel shot of that big swastika, I think in Nuremberg, getting blown up by a cannon. And you know why that would be cool? Because if you've got tanks, that means you have a control of the state, and you are instituting a new rule at the material level, and you're blowing up those old monuments to a dead society because you are building a new one. That is the iconoclasm that I would love to see. And the current one just feels like a very, honestly, kind of sad substitution. Yeah, oh god, strafing run of A-10 Warthogs with the fucking fucking Stonewall Jackson's head just. But you need to get the tanks first. So the next time you're imagining, oh, I really want to get rid of that statue, it's like, do you really want to get rid of it? If you really want to get rid of it, you'll do it from a position of authority, so that you are enshrining a new order, a new just order. You're not painting over the facade of a rotten old order, which is all we're trying to do right now. See, that's why I don't like that. Like that's always been the thing that's annoyed me, or I guess not even annoyed me. Amused me about the word tanky, either as something that people use as a term of abuse, or as something that people self-describe with. Where are the tanks? What tanks are you referring to? There's no tanks. In 1956, they were talking about Soviet tanks rolling into Budapest. What tanks are you talking about now? I mean, some people would say like Assad or maybe like the Chinese or something like that. And I guess like that's an argument. I don't buy it, but it's an argument. But unless you have that belief that like no, it's the PRC, that's an actual like socialist counter hegemony with billionaires that's doing actual colonialism. But never mind, they're all secret communists. If you want to believe that, that's fine. At least there's a tank in your mind that exists in the real world that somebody could drive somewhere. For anyone else, it's like there's no tanks. You're assuming a tank. So that means that you're like operating from the assumption of a party in power, i.e. the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, controlling a state and a geostrategic sphere of influence and managing it, like in the game Twilight Struggle. Your ideology is from the position of maintaining that position. That is not the current position of the left in this country, or the West, or anywhere, I would argue. Except for maybe you can argue Cuba, and I mean, they have power within their own country, but it's so constrained by us, you know. But they were able to kick the fucking South Africans out of Namibia, so maybe I'll say Cuba. But like they can't really. They're an unrealistic. They're a bastion, but they cannot be a counter hegemon because they're too small. They're too tiny. They're little guys. Their tanks aren't going to be able to roll up on our tanks, for example. We have to take over the tanks. We got to get in the tanks somehow. Tearing down statues, somebody is asking, tearing down statues is something. I would say it can be something if it does what the person writing suggested, which is give people a sense of possibility changing. To give them a sense that things can be different. But if it's just a sense of that, once again, we're not anywhere. It has to arise, that feeling of things are possible has to be channeled into some sort of container. Something that where decisions can be, where a plan of action, where an actual strategy can be deliberated, agreed to, and then carried out. That has to exist. That has to be made. So if pulling down statues gets people thinking this is worth enough time and energy and investment into making those structures, then it's useful. If it says, hey, we pull down these statues, maybe that means we can pull down these other bigger statues. Hey, we pulled down the statue of these Confederates, maybe that means we can pull down the statues of these Union generals because they were racist too, and they killed a lot of Indians as well, and America's bad. And then maybe we can pull down, and then you got Sean King saying, hey, let's also start destroying images of white Jesus. Sean King is not right, by the way. If you think Sean King is right, you are either a moron or you are, like him, a cop. I'm sorry. Sorry. Nope. I mean, you can argue why that's theoretically right all day, but once again, you are building the world's stupidest and most pointless ship in the world's most fragile bottle. You're in the real world. What is advanced? How would you go about doing that? And what would be advanced by doing it? Answer me. Someone in here who thinks that's a good idea, answer me one of those two questions. The thing is that people justify these weird libidinal indulgences by saying, yeah, but they deserve it. And I gotta quote Sean Penn here, got nothing to do with it. Nobody deserves anything. None of us have free will. To each other. Like I said, we all have free will ourselves because we are ignorant of what is making us do what we're doing. But from outside of ourselves, looking at everyone else, no one else has free will. Because we can determine why they're doing what they're doing. So getting mad at everybody and talking about deserve and vengeance on a personal level just reifies this all as a culture war, because where else can you fight out these sort of battles about points of etiquette, essentially social etiquette? You can say that they're important, and they are, but they boil down to ways of acting in public, which is etiquette. How do you adjudicate that at any level other than the cultural? That's the only place you'll ever be able to negotiate those arguments, and they won't filter down, because anything that challenges from the culture gets fucking recuperated until it can't because of overspill. And that comes because people channel it. People create a collective will out of a class consciousness and affect change by confronting capital, by denying it the ability to extract profit, and requiring it to change the conditions in which capitalism operates, to either the point of reform or to the point of abolition. But the thing that people shouldn't do, and that I see too many people do, is just decide to write everything off because of these facts, as though we don't live in a highly mediated society, as though this isn't always, the hardest problem isn't always going to be to re-socialize people who have been desocialized by their entire lives, and that this is exactly how things would be challenged. Like the rejoinder about the protest that is always most baffling to me is when people say, look at all these corporations that like it, and look at all these brands and celebrities and famous rich people who are co-opting it. It's like, they're trying to recuperate it. That's what capitalism does to all challenges to it in any way. They might succeed, but pointing out that they're trying isn't saying anything. Oh God, and that's the other thing. It's like someone says, maybe this makes people feel like, things are possible, but look where the movement is happening. Like now, we've literally gone another level of abstraction away from actual statues in real physical space to now television shows, and not even new ones. Doing a cultural revolution about 20-year-old programs. That ain't good. That's not progress. That is more flight from the lack of accountability. The fact that none of us are accountable to each other, because we have not invested any symbols or people or institutions with authority over us, which we're going to have to do. At some point, we're all going to have to, if the left coalesces into anything meaningful in this country, at some point, we are all going to have to submit, in that we are going to have to give up some control over our lives, some control over what we do, some control over when we do it, some control over ourselves to someone else in the form of a organization that will have central discipline. Because that's the only way you get to do, you can apply force is through coordination. Otherwise, it's just undirected force is destroyed in piecemeal. Only unified, coordinated force can push through. You guys ever see Finding Dory? One of the most moving scenes in cinema history, in my opinion. It's when, towards the end, when Dory and Albert Brooks are swimming in a big sea of dumbass fish that are just all going lip, 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 and they get caught in a fucking one of those big old industrial fishing nets, and they're getting pulled up, and they're all gonna get, oh God, we're gonna get turned into fish sticks, and all the fish are swimming crazily, wildly against the net, but by their own instinct. And then Dory and Albert Brooks get them to stop freaking out, and they go in one direction. They all swim down in this point in the same way, and the fucking net breaks off of the fucking rope. That is That is the labor movement. That is the left. That's the modern left. And when it succeeds anyway, and that's the goal, that's the entire thing. Finding Nemo, whatever. If you're not pushing in the same direction, it's just going to get, it's just, your individual effort will eventually be diffused. See, and that's the thing. We can't communicate to each other. But the thing is, I really think a big part of it is it isn't just that we're all isolated physically and that we don't have hegemonic institutions of communication that we can invest enough belief into to credit what they're saying so that we can build a ideology that, or build a class consciousness simultaneously by listening to the same thing, because not enough of us are listening to the same thing with the same amount of credulity. That is a problem, but I'd say another problem is that we have been turned into such individuals. We fetishize our individual desires so much. We have had it grained into us so much that freedom is our ability to indulge our desires. That's why you see a lot of people correctly say capitalism isn't freedom, because you are forced to work, and you'd be freer if you had more vacation and you had more control of your workplace and all that stuff. That's true, but it only begs the question of what freedom means, and the unexamined answer is what I want to do. But of course, you don't want to do what you want to do. None of us want to do what we want to do. We do what we have been taught to want to do. And that means that we've bound up with our notion of the society we want a lot of things that are coping mechanisms for the society we have. Things that wouldn't be necessary in a new society we're building, and that we can let go of in the immediate moment if we're reorienting ourselves around a project, an actual project that we wanted to see executed. We can kind of drop those things. But nobody wants to drop it. Nobody wants to drop it because we don't have anything that we really believe in enough to invest that much faith into, to give up something that to this point has really been helping us. Just helping us live with the horror of the world around us. Not realizing that if we drop that, the work will fill the hole. The submission will be the freedom, because you will feel fulfilled. You will feel the sort of satisfaction that what the other thing you used to fetishize only gave you a very faint echo of. But you have to have faith to make the first jump, and nobody believes in anything enough to make the first jump. So that's a problem that we gotta deal with. The problem we all live with, as Norman Rockwell said. That's the name of his famous painting of what was her name? The girl who desegregated, I think, the New Orleans school district. I'm actually drinking chocolate milk. Favorite cut of French fry? I've yet to encounter a French fry that's better than the McDonald's French fry. I consider that sui generis. And a piping hot McDonald's French fry is genuinely delicious. Ruby Bridges, that's the right name. One of the most chaotic things about Amber is that she likes room temperature McDonald's French fries, which blows my mind. But the hot ones, and I know, I've probably had better individually, but just as a category, my experience with them is better than my experience with any other discrete category of fry. I do kind of like the shoestrings. I like them shoestringy. I like the crispy. I don't like the thick. I don't like steak fries. I don't like it where it's got like the pappy potato-y flavor in the middle. I like it when it's. Um, I like it when it is crisp. I never get fries at Popeyes because I don't like the because I only get the because Popeyes. Why would you get anything as a side but the mashed potatoes? Many French fries. One of the few moments he had fun in his presidency. Uh, handsome handsome quarterback hamburger party. The truck when he got to ride the truck when they put him on the aircraft carrier and he wore the uniform and when he gave the medal to the hero dog. Those were moments that were nice, but the thing is, he hasn't thought about them since they happened. He was happy for a second, and then he was thinking about how unfair Greta Van Susteren was to him. And then it's gone. So like he doesn't even remember those days. I love Culver's. Culver's is great. Wisconsin excellence right there. Butterburgers. You know it. Oh, put the fries in the mashed potatoes. Okay, now you're getting interesting. Get an extra side. All right, I might do it. I definitely pity Trump. Trump's miserable. I mean, you should have like some sort of you should try to extend empathy to every human being because every single person is only where they are through the happenstance of their life. What and when they encountered people and places and things. And because their response to those that might seem to be self-generated was really just a reaction that was bubbled up in the subconscious that was never even thought of, that was beyond thought. So even though it's totally determined within the psyche, it's completely invisible and mysterious. So nobody's where they are for any malevolence within them. I mean, the malevolence builds over time. The malevolence is turned towards, but it's all in the context of where and when they existed. So yeah, I empathize with Hitler. I empathize with everybody a little bit. But the thing is, because within Hitler, if you imagine you're Hitler, you imagine you're Trump, you don't know. You don't know how determined you are. You can choose to break out of that. You can choose to turn towards good, turn towards truth, turn towards universal humanity, turn towards an awareness of like what is to be good, what the good represents, as in like the fundamental union of all beings, the fundamental oneness of all in the universe. You can turn towards that at any minute, and if you don't, you fucked up. And so you should be sanctioned and stopped from doing bad things and punished. Maybe you'll learn, and if you don't, at least you've been kept away from other people. But it doesn't mean that you have to hate personally. And it doesn't mean that you have to deny anyone, the benefit of trying to extend your mind into theirs with their experience and try to piece it together. I mean, Trump's very easy to piece together. His parents were monsters. His parents were essentially the father and mother from The People Under the Stairs. Anybody seen that movie? The gimp suit blowing holes in the walls. Just complete psychopaths who treated their children with monstrous abusive disdain. He had a brother. He had an older brother, Fred Jr., who could not take it, who couldn't take the pressure, and because he was honestly, I think, a better person than Trump in that he responded better to the traumas of his birth and his childhood, left the family, ended up becoming a pilot, died of alcoholism, but that was because he couldn't take what they had done to him. Whereas Donald just became like the whipped dog, and now his entire life has been trying to get this fantasy monster, this ghoul, And if anyone has seen a picture of Fred Trump, he is an actual he was a living skeleton. To tell him he's good, which will never happen. And so he's been miserable every moment of his life. He's never been happy. And that sucks. The thought of that, somebody who can never have a moment, who can never just exist for a second and not be beset by demons, by insecurity, by loathing and fear of others. Awful. Yeah, and Fred Trump's father did the same to him. Awful fucking crypto-Nazi motherfuckers. The worst of the German authoritarian Prussian lineage. Those fucking Prussians, man. Those sandy, stiff-necked assholes. Bavarians just want to party. Bavarians just want to wear leather shorts and drink comically large steins of beer. Prussians want to take over the world. All right, guys. I'm done for today. This is a good one. Hitler was not Bavarian. He was Austrian. He did start in Munich, yes. But he never, the Nazis never got the majority of the vote in Bavaria or any of the Catholic parts of Germany because of the Center Party, which was explicitly Catholic. He ran up all of his big margins in Protestant parts of Germany. Anyway, we'll talk more about that maybe on a different episode because it's very fascinating. The electoral map of Weimar Germany, very interesting. Bye-bye.